So hello and welcome to another Valorant map analysis video. Today we are talking about Haven and how to attack on Haven. If you haven't seen all the others of this series, where I've been through a couple maps now already talking about how to attack on them, then go and check that out. After I've done all the maps for attacking, we'll be looking at defending as well. But let's just dive straight into Haven, and we'll start, as we always do, by looking at the different ways that attackers can approach the map. Now, I'm going to say that there's only really 3 ways. You could argue that there's 4, but I'm just going to say you can go towards C, you can go towards mid. I know you could argue you can kind of go 2 ways, but they connect together, and let's call it just 2 for now, or you can go towards A main as well. So there's 3 main ways for the attackers to go, and of course there's 3 sites on Haven, which is a bit odd and unique to this map. But one thing that's very important about Haven is the fact that there are 5 choke points, and this really has led to defending this map being pretty standard. At least in your ranked games, I would expect it to be pretty standard. I mean, I don't know, would you put the choke point here? Maybe here. But basically, there's 5 choke points on the map Haven, and generally what you will see in your ranked games is 1 defender for each of the choke points that you can potentially go to. That's basically a normal setup for the map Haven, and that's normally the way it's going to go. So let's start looking at these choke points and thinking about how we might attack these choke points as well, and start looking at how we might attack the map of Haven. So we'll start with this C-long choke point here, and this one is obviously very interesting because you have this long corridor here on C, and so just pushing directly, it's unlikely that you're going to not be seen or not be heard if you just run it up C. One thing I will say though is, and this is something that I like to do on pistol rounds in particular, is I do run it up C, or I like to request that my team does just run it up C on pistol round, because of course the player who is on C trying to defend with a pistol isn't going to be able to mow you all down running down C if you do just send it there. And it's unlikely that at any other point in the game you will just send it C, because it can be quite risky to do so, because you can potentially be mowed down if they have an actual gun. But on a pistol round, you're not going to get mowed down. So I think that a pistol round in particular, in ranked games, is a pretty good time. Just send it C and just go for it and see what happens. Basically, you'll get good information on who's defending on C, how they defend, how quickly did the opponents rotate to C. All of that will become clear to you pretty quickly on a pistol round, and you will definitely be able to get onto the site. As I say, the defender with a pistol isn't going to be able to stop you, and then once you're on the site, you're kind of in an advantageous position to hold the site then with your pistols, and you should be doing pretty okay at that point. So first thing I would say is C is a quite good opening pistol round push, I think, and just full sending it to your opponents and seeing what happens. But looking later on at C and how this choke point goes, it actually is quite favorable, I would say, for defenders. There are some advantages for attackers, but I think in the general there are one thing I like for defenders, if I am a defender with any choke point, is can I be on multiple sides? Can I be multiple angles? Will the attackers know which way to look? And obviously with some utility usage, but let's just assume that the normal smokes are down like here and here per se, but you can still be both sides, right? You can still be here, you can still be anywhere around the box, you can still be anywhere over on this left hand side as well, you can still be behind this box. So the attackers, and you could even be in this corner as well, so the attackers have to check both ways. It's not as simple for them to just I know where you're gonna be, I know exactly where you are gonna have to get through this choke point, and also of course you're gonna have to send it down this long narrow pathway as well, which isn't the easiest and can be quite easy for the defenders to stop you, and you only have like this little area here to sort of help yourself survive. So in general, I don't think that pushing C will be that fruitful, at least not as like a full rush. Obviously you can do C splits, but we'll talk about that when we start talking about garage. And so I don't think that C will mostly be, I know it's interesting, some teams, pro teams I mean, do like attacking C and do like sending it to C quite often, and it's quite interesting to see how they do that, obviously if they have a set plan. But I think in your ranked games you will probably need a set plan of how to attack C if you want to do it successfully, and in your ranked games obviously that's probably less likely to happen. So I do think that C isn't the easiest site to attack just going off this choke point alone. But now let's talk about garage. So in Garage, it's quite interesting because normally you'll get this space for free a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time, you will get this space in mid up to Garage for free, and that's something that you can definitely take advantage of if you want to. Definitely can be. But then the doors are obviously a pretty tight choke point, and there's a kind of a 50-50 element going on here, is what I'll say, for attackers and defenders, because it's quite a small confined area where there aren't many angles the defenders will be. Defenders will normally either play here. I mean, not really many people go behind this box, and I think basically because it's a death trap, or you know, they can be in the window. And so really, when you think about this and you look at this, it's really good. I just talked about how you're normally going to have to look both sides. When you enter garage, normally you're only going to be really looking at this left-hand side, or straight ahead of you, I guess, as well. But, you know, you're going to be looking straight ahead and onto your left, and that's where most of the time the defenders will be. So that's actually a bit of an advantage for the attackers, and it is a very confined area, so if you send something like a Skydog or a Sova drone in there, then that is also going to be quite good for you. And saying that just reminded me that this is the meta comp on Haven. Kind of forgot to do that. But it's Jet, Astra, Sova, Killjoy, and Sky. This was a pretty standard. Sky sometimes was replaced for Breach. That was pretty much the only major change. Some teams played Cypher over Killjoy, but Killjoy seemed to be the main agent that most teams went for. So these four were pretty locked in. And then Sky or Breach was a good pick as well. But as I was saying on Garage, if you do send a drone or a dog in there, because it's quite a confined space, you know, you often will find the defender, and, you know, if you run in after it, that can lead to very good things in particular. And as I said, most of the time they will be on this left-hand side. The only problem is you do have this vertical element here, which, you know, anytime there's a vertical angle, is going to be a bit of a defender's advantage, because obviously then your crosshair placement can never be correct, because they could be low, they could be high, and so you'll have to make that adjustment. But taking garage control is quite interesting, because I don't really know how helpful it is a lot of the time to actually gaining C sight. This split on C here, because of how shallow this angle is into sight from garage, really you're only punishing people who play here, who play on this left-hand side. Otherwise, everyone else, you know, anyone who's playing behind this box, or playing in logs, or playing back here on the left-hand side as well, you know, they're somewhat unaffected by your push here. So, you know, say they give you garage control for free and they're just playing C site pretty passively there. You know, this garage control that you have, I mean, obviously it's nice to have the control of the space, but in terms of making a C split push, I don't actually know how fruitful it will be most of the time, because you're probably just going to end up fighting the same angles. Not that it's not an advantageous situation, and normally there will be someone who's tasked with manning garage, so if you can kill that person, then whoever's on C will probably be isolated, and, you know, will be waiting for rotations, and they're probably pretty screwed. However, one thing with garage I must mention is if the spike, hold on, let me get a spike here, if the spike is planted on this site, one thing I always see, and I see this at pro level as well, is someone will have taken garage, they'll be in here, and they know that defenders are in, you know, this sort of area. Defenders obviously will be in this sort of area, ready to go and retake C. And what they'll do is they'll go and peek this angle and think, I can get a free kill here, and it never works out, or very rarely works out at the very least. It never works out because the defenders are always thinking about, well, we probably should try and, you know, get into garage as well, and try and, you know, take back this control and come from two angles. Because that will be advantageous for them, because obviously this angle here and this angle here are very different as opposed to the attacker's angles that I just talked about. But the thing is, defenders will always be looking at this as well. So anytime you swing it, it's not like you've got this big surprise on them, because they're probably thinking about trying to retake garage and trying to, you know, they're looking this way already. They're waiting for you a lot of the time. And so it just very rarely ends up being fruitful, because you have, you know that they're in the general area, but you don't know exactly where. You know, they could be here, they could be where I've put it just there, they could be back here. You know, you're peeking out blind a lot of the time and thinking, oh, I know they're in this area. Of course they're in that area, but they are also watching you. And so, yeah, it just never works out. If you are in this situation where the spike is planted in C and you've managed to, you know, get to the top part of garage, just hold. Just hold. Either play in like a corner or play like below the window, you know, in some ratty angle below the window maybe. And just keep garage control and hold it for as long as you can. Because if you can hold garage control, if you can hold it for the entire time and just limit the defenders to only having one real angle, assuming that, you know, you've got long control and you've got the flank covered, someone has that. If they can only come out of this angle here, well, this is a very small choke point that you can just send utility at and, you know, stop them from being able to even enter the site. You know, you'll win the round very easily. And even if they successfully do manage to get out here and kill people all around you, you know, they still probably will expect someone to be long if you're the last player remaining. If you're in garage, they probably will expect them to be on long rather than in garage, and you can probably win the round either way. So what I would say is don't get aggressive there on garage and try and peek this corner. Once you've got the post plant down, just play a bit more passive and just hold garage and hold garage control for your team. And just while we're talking about C plants as well, one thing I do just want to quickly mention is that you should never plant here. Try or desperately try not to plant here. Sometimes you might be forced to if it's like the last couple seconds of the round and you just need to get a plant down safe. That situation I can accept. Any other time, really, you should not be planting there. You know, you should be trying to plant here if possible, so that it's open to long. You look at this plant position here on the default box, and it is just truly terrible. Give me an angle that attackers play that can easily see it if the defender is actually going for a full defuse on this plant. And the answer is there is none. If you're playing in garage, you can't see them. If you're playing at long, you can't see them. If you're playing behind this box, you can't see them. Literally no angles can see this plant, so you should really never plant there. You should always try and plant out so that long can see them, or maybe behind this box as well. Again, long can see them, where multiple angles can potentially see what the spike is doing and what you are doing with the spike. That is very important, and so try your best not to plant here on this default box. I mean, you get the same sort of amount of cover here anyway from, you know, these angles over here. So yeah, make this your default plan. But now let's get to B and B site in general, and let's take a look at this choke point. Again, it suffers from the same thing I talked about on C, where, you know, you'll run in and the big question is, where are they? You know, they can be tight right, they can be tight left, they can be over on each of the link sides. You know, there's 4 different positions that, you know, you'll have to check or be able to get rid of. And I think that that is why, you know, a lot of teams tend to stick away from B site. It's also, of course, very easy for defenders to retake. Probably, maybe the easiest site for defenders to retake in general, because defenders will normally, you know, have this space controlled, and they'll normally have, obviously, a link space controlled. If they don't, then you will win the round 100%. But, you know, normally they will have this, and so you'll be forced back out here. And obviously that makes it pretty easy for the defenders to retake, and, you know, because they've got 2 sides to come in from, and they can normally actually just take the full site for free. What you often see with B plants at the top level is, you know, it'll be get the spike down here, and then everyone just run out. And, you know, hope that we can just delay. And I think it, you know, it perhaps worked at first, you know, when teams first started doing that. I think now that most teams have adapted to that and understand that, you know, they use their utility, you know, they smoke off the entrance, you know, they get on the spike and it just creates chaos, and normally the defenders will end up coming out on top in those situations, although not always. So in general, B probably not the easiest plant in the world. What I would say is, on save rounds in particular, it can be, you know, a strategy to just try and get the spike down. You know, normally you can get the spike down a lot of times, you know, as long as you potentially smoke off both of these sides, and then, you know, you just go in, plant the spike, and then just, I don't know, save round, hope for chaos, hope for just winning the round, I guess, off defenders making mistakes. It's very possible, and so save rounds, I don't mind going B. I think it's quite a good option. And then finally, let's move to A, and this is really important, and we need to talk about A, and I think that most people in general favor A site. A lot of teams I know favor A site. Crew in particular seem to really favor going to A and attacking A, and I'll explain why I think that is in a minute. But one thing we really need to understand is the importance of this little choke point here, and why you should always, and I mean always, I would mean pretty much every single round, be using either a jet smoke, if I can get one, using a jet smoke or a cipher cage or another bit of, like, you know, utility that you don't mind, you know, sort of using just at the start of a round, and using it so that the defender here cannot see if you have crossed. That is really important, that this defender cannot see if you've crossed, because it allows you to do a lot of different things. If you can, you know, cross with the defender not knowing, you can then play around with the map a lot. For instance, if you can get someone down into here, you can then fake a C push, right? You could fake a C push. If you've got someone into here, you've jet smoked that at the start, someone has walked down here, they've got into A short, you can then fake a C push, you know, oh, we're pushing C, we're trying to push C, maybe one's outside garage, you know, you get up there, you really look like, oh, we're about, the defender has seen 3 of you here on long, oh, they're coming C, rotate. They, you know, you wait for the defenders to rotate. Hopefully this person can hear them rotate, you know, they can hear them, they can hear the footsteps of the defenders rotating, and then, you know, you just go back to A. And the thing is, this player then can probably manage to walk up all the way into defender's spawn before they've realized, oh, it was a fake, you know, and as your teammates are coming all the way back and, you know, through to A, you've managed to walk all the way into defender's spawn because they didn't know that someone was on A short this whole time, and that is the advantage of smoking that off in the first place. Or you can just do the exact opposite. You know, you can put a smoke here and just go back. And the thing is, again, and this particular at high levels, you know, they won't know is someone in short, and so after you've done that first strategy, maybe, well, then they don't rotate as quick because they're expecting a fake, and you just hit C, and you know, that can become a thing as well. And so you just want to deny this information. And also, you know, after you've done this and maybe, you know, nothing's happened, you haven't pushed them on long and they're just spraying bullets, well, then, you know, you flash out of here and you kill this person for free as well. You know, you can start playing around with that bit of utility and really punish whoever is on this A long to where they, you know, don't want to make a mistake. They feel like, you know, they can't really help the team much by peeking this angle. And you have to think a bit like this. This little area here dictates whether you have access to, you know, two of your choke points, and you want to be able to pressure as many of those different choke points as possible, right? So you have to have some amount of control over this tiny space and deny the information to your opponents. And then as soon as you've done that, then you have access to, you know, all of the different choke points on the map. Because if you can't get past this area, well, then you just can't go to A site. But now let's talk about attacking A site and why I think people like attacking A site. So we're gonna again assume we have our normal smokes here on A, in heaven, of course, and towards CT. And now let's look at normal angles that defenders might play. You might get a defender, you know, somewhere in the back here. You'll normally get a defender maybe on this side here. You might even get a defender tucked in this corner here, and maybe one playing in and around the boxes there. And let me talk about these angles and why I think that attackers like attacking this site. So let's assume we're coming from short. So on short, we can peek this first angle here, this on the right hand side when you're coming out of short, and you can't really be seen by anyone else. Okay, so that's a good point, right? You can't really be seen by anywhere else, and you can check this one for free. Then once you've checked that one, again, you can come wide here and check this left-hand side, and again, you can't really be seen from anywhere else. And then you can go around to the back and check this last angle, and you've gone like one by one by one. And that means that you can, you know, sort of steadily go. You're never getting shot in the back because the defenders are always kind of where you expect them, and you can just check one, check two, check three. And the same is true if we do the similar thing on long. You know, we can come out here and check this tight right, and we can't really be seen because of these boxes or anywhere there. You know, this player isn't really our duty if we're going to A, you know, that's for the A short player. The same for this one on A short. You know, if we're coming from A short, this person on this tight right isn't really our duty. But then again, we can go here and we can check left and see, oh, there's no one there, or maybe there is, and we kill them. And then again, we're going towards the back site. And it's again just that 1, 2, 3, like steady manipulation up the site, you know, taking one fight at a time rather than being sort of, you know, blasted from two angles or whatever. You know, as I talked about with C, there isn't that opportunity because you have to be able to, you know, quickly check both sides very fast, or, you know, you have to be able to manipulate the defender somehow into knowing that they are on one side. Whereas on A, all of the common positions that you might see the defenders take will be a nice sort of, you know, swing one, then swing the next, swing the next. And that is why I think taking a site can often be quite almost a pleasant experience. Because there isn't that sort of frustration of, oh, I got shot in the back, I was looking the wrong way. Because most of the time the defenders will be where you expect them to, and you can check them one at a time. Now, there are some other things I want to point out on this map as well. One is good lurking positions. As I mentioned, you know, you can potentially play around with this a lot. You know, if you can get pushed up into A short, and you can hear a lot of what's going on in the map. A similar position is here, and I don't think it's too hard to get in this little crevice by B. You know, a quick smoke, you know, here on the site here, that is a pretty common smoke either way. Can get you into this position, and once you're in this position, well, then you can catch off a lot of people on rotations. And I would think if you are going to A, then what you should do, if you're like an Astra player in particular, this position is your friend, because if you're going A, you will catch someone rotating there. Not only will be able to hear them, but you'll get a free kill almost all of the time anyway as well. And similar is true if you're going C. You know, if you're in this position, anyone rotating from A, again, you can get a free kill. It's not as free because they will be facing you at least, but you will probably catch them off guard and get a free kill again, and you'll be able to hear everything from this position. Anything that the defenders do, anyone, whatever the garage player is doing, you'll be able to hear them. Whatever the B player is doing, you'll be able to hear them. Any rotations from C to A or A to C, you'll be able to hear them. And so this position will just give you so much information that I really do think that, you should be taking advantage of this position in particular. But Haven is a bit of an odd map because unlike a lot of the others, on Ascent I talked about how mid is really important. You should always take control of mid. On Bind, I always talked about how defaulting is really important as, full rushes on the first tempo isn't going to go well for you. On Haven, it's a bit more loose. I don't think there's any sort of hard and fast rules that necessarily exist for Haven that you should follow a lot of the time. It feels like a pretty free map to do whatever you're comfortable with, and whatever areas of the map you feel most confident in exploring, probably just go with it, because I think you can have success in a lot of different areas on Haven on attacking side. I think the problems on Haven are much more for defenders, and the onus is on defenders to try and stop you. Because with the 3 sites and, just with the way the sites are laid out, I don't think there is that many hard and fast rules. My only sort of suggestions for, rules that I would say is that putting a bit of utility here so that you can potentially cross is a pretty good rule. And trying to get into this position here to lurk is also a pretty good rule. But other than that, you can probably do really whatever you want. I'm not here to suggest, oh, you should always try and do this, because you can probably get away with doing a lot of different stuff on Haven. So whatever you feel confident with, whatever site you feel like, you have in your wheelhouse, and whatever site your opponents you feel like are a bit weak there, maybe just go for that, feel it in the moment, whatever you feel comfortable with, go with that, because I don't think there is necessarily one thing that you should do on Haven all the time. You can win with fast rushes, you can win with defaulting, you can win with fakes, you can win with set plays. It really is all free for you there. To do, it's just a matter of pulling it off. And so that is my explanation of how I would attack Haven. Next up, I think it will be Icebox, which will be probably more boring than Haven if I'm being honest, but stay tuned for that. Obviously, I won't be doing a video tomorrow, but I will be doing one on Boxing Day.